let's see. So let's start off with following up from last week. Okay, I didn't do that many markups here. All right, but let's pretty much analyze what happened in between now and in between Saturday and now. So we see this, right? We are still bearish. Here's the thing about, you know, every time I tell you guys this, it's I'm willing to wait as long as I'm willing to hold the trade, right? And that could be weeks. I don't know about waiting weeks, right? But I wait a long time to let something set up so I can then, you know, capitalize. Because as you can see, the entirety of January was a correction, right? And now in February, we're seeing potential downside. Let me tell you why I say potential. For one, we already know dollar is not giving us deep retracements, right? Any of these essential pullbacks or just reactions to stimulus being pumped into the market. That's like my interpretation of why we're seeing these corrections, right? And I mean, obviously with stimulus coming in, pumping money, naturally that causes short-term relief. But all you're doing is essentially throwing gas into the fire. Why? Because we're already seeing dollar devalue itself, while you're simultaneously devaluing it more by pumping more money, right? Like, for example, I believe it's like 70-80%, right, of all of the money printed in the U.S. was printed during COVID, which is what caused, right, all that money pumping here, right, during COVID. And then after that, that's why we're seeing the devaluation of the currency, because it's unsustainable. But yeah, anyways, I'm not a fundamentalist, right? You know this. But anyways, right, we have a narrative in play, right? We are pretty much bearish, I would say, until the mid next year, if I'm being honest. Why? Because once we get over this COVID stuff, right, people are gonna realize, oh, we're in a recession. So once we acknowledge that, right, we're gonna see potentially a pretty big dip. I'd like to definitely touch the low 80s. But now the thing that is confusing me from like a long-term basis, right, is will this final leg down, if it even is the final leg, will this full leg sustain itself in the perspective of, will we create a new low, or will we, not break this low, give some sort of unwillingness, right? Give a daily structure break, right? And then give some type of pullback, right, to support the unwillingness and give us higher movement, right? But now, in terms of the bigger picture, that does not make sense to me, right? But if that does happen, we now have a target, and we now have more targets up here. But that's not for now. That's just something I've been curious about, is even though we're bearish, I want to know how long this is willing to sustain itself. So, right, for the meantime, I'm just going to focus on continuing trend, continuing the overall narrative, the overall bias, right, and just keep going from there. Because, right, so this was the 8th, yesterday. The 8th, 4:30. So market open was around here, right around here ish, right? So what I noticed here, right, was off the bat we broke structure. Why did we break structure? Because if we're looking at pretty much our intraday here, right, break of our previous low that created our final high, right? Yes, right, you need these initial breaks of structure to dictate this, but because we saw the full leg, pretty much come out of play, we now have, obviously this minor continuation, right? So from there, right, because we have now established unwillingness and we've established bearish order flow, right? We're only aiming for targets. I'm not aiming to mitigate. Why? Because our overall bias is now fitting our minor intraday, right? But the thing is too, is our swing and our minor intraday are bearish, right? But our major intraday is bullish, right? So, right, I'm not too worried about taking this low out. I think we can easily take this low out, but I'm curious to see if we're gonna react out of anywhere here, and that could be very instant wick, and then go from there, right? Because we've seen this happen before. We see a pretty deep retracement, because honestly, theoretically, I don't see this coming back up, or too far up. I don't see it overall breaking that. But we've came into a scenario before right here, right, where we had a very deep retracement, right, that then created a very substantial high from an intraday perspective. From a swing perspective, it's still relatively slim, relatively small, but to me, I don't want to see this, go higher. If anything, I would love to see this continuation take out liquidity here, which now takes out the entire longer term, a bigger leg here, right? But that signifies to me now, this is my point of overall invalidation, right? You see a point of invalidation here, I'll explain that in a bit. But if you see this, right, I'd love to see now the correction into this move up here, right? This final spike up before the move down there, to then give us a full-on move where we target down here, right? So there's still time, but the thing is what are we going to be given, right? For example, I cannot assume this will happen without enough data, but that is theoretically what I would personally like to see. So right, let me explain that point of invalidation. Oh, we shouldn't have deleted it. Okay. Right, so pretty much talking about why there is a point of invalidation here, even though my bias invalidation is up here. So this is my point of continuation invalidation, meaning, right, I'd like to still see this continue. I don't want to see these deeper pullbacks. Why? Because if we break here now, right, we technically could see bullish order flow come into play and begin that overall correction here, right? So now is when we can start seeing, those deeper retracements, right? But if we don't need to come up this high, we don't need to come up this high. That's just how I'm looking at it. As you can see right now, though, it's very potential that this could break this previous high here. Very well can. But like I said, if we're going to take out this high, I'm pretty sure we're going to take out this previous high. And it invalidates the setup from this morning, which was over here. Right here. Right, so this was Monday's scenario. Or actually before that. Right, we've noticed, right, that we have not only taken out, right, this potential point of invalidation of bearishness, right? The reason why this was the point of invalidation was I saw this final push up to create our final leg, and there's potentially volume here, right? So if there's volume here and we react, then bearish order flow is still intact, right? But obviously we didn't, and we came back and tapped this pretty much this inefficiency fill right here, right? But that didn't work out. Let me see. Right, so I showed you guys this yesterday. Right, I showed you guys, right, the potential schematic 2 in play here. Right, the potential schematic 2, there was a 30-second candle there, and then there was even an efficiency fill right there, so there's plenty of opportunity. And then that gave us this full-on bearish leg, right? So I had this one candle marked out, right? And I wanted to see if we were going to react from here or not. So as I'm already in this position from here, right? We came back, tapped the POI, right? Came back into this potential other POI here. All right, let me actually break this down. Yeah, potential candle here, right? But if you notice, we have a reaction and then we have another reaction, right? That left equal highs for one, and two, this mitigated the same candle twice. So this candle is now validated to me, and this is showing to me that the bearish order flow is disrupted. So meaning it theoretically should not continue lower. So as soon as I saw that, right, I actually came back and I looked at, and my original POI was actually here, right? It was actually this candle here, and it was the open and the close, right? But my point of validation for the hedge is taking out this low, so that's why my stop is there. Right, so that worked out pretty nicely here, right? And although, right, as I'm doing this, even though we're taking partials up here, right, even though this is only a hedge, right, this still continued for a pretty good trade. Let's see. Right here, so this current trade should be trailing about 27 to 1, right? Even though it was a hedge, right? So if you're hedging, it really just depends on how your risk management about it goes. Like you could risk 1% on the hedge, or you could even do half the lot size of whatever your original position is, right? It's completely up to you. But yeah, as you can see, a hedge here turned into a very good move. And that falls into being dynamic, falls into a lot of stuff we've talked about before. As for today's scenario, right, extremely sloppy. Extremely sloppy, but this is where, understanding legs comes into play. And this is an example I've seen plenty of times. Like, for example, having previous liquidity, right, before a potential POI and then reversal. That's pretty much the basic smart money concept model. Take out liquidity, reverse. But it only works when the context also supports that overall narrative. And by that I mean we already had it show its hand here, right? So because we're seeing this pullback here, even though this is considered breaking structure, right, I'm focusing on the leg and I'm focusing on the entire direction too. You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't make sense for me to consider these breaks of lows to be a bearish break of structure. Why? Because for one, it doesn't fit the overall narrative. Two, right, as we're taking out this final low here, look at where the volume is, right? So it doesn't theoretically make sense for this to continue lower. Why? Demand is starting to show itself. Supply is extremely weak based on volume, also based on diminishment. So combine that with the 50% of an SC, right? Actually, I'm showing you guys the wrong markups. I actually did this entire markup here right now. Sorry. But anyways, yeah, that kind of discussed yesterday's thing. So before I finish that up too, right, I do want to cover this, right, is the fact that our major intraday is still bearish and that we tapped a potential POI, right around the new day open, right? So I don't consider this to be a catalyst to bring this lower, but it is the catalyst that's beginning this initial pullback. I still don't want to see, you know, for example, this point of invalidation break. But still, even though our minor intraday here is bullish, and our major intraday is bearish, but our swing is overall bullish. But anyways, back here, right, as I was reading my structure, right, I see my high to my low, my high to my low, right, and we now challenge this high, right, we leave equal highs, right, prior to this entry. But, right, you have to acknowledge that even though we didn't break structure, this is not a mitigation play here. This is extremely deep. This does not make sense for this to continue lower, meaning my point of invalidation is down here, right? But the reason why I didn't put my SL there, right, put it under the inefficiency, right, was because as I broke down the candle, right, is that the wrong time frame? Right, I'm willing to take not only this loss, right, but if we reach this deep retracement here, I would not want to see this go higher, right? I would now consider this, right, if we were to react from here, depending on the speed, depending on how many candles it takes, you could easily see this fail. But also, to add on to why I was very confident in this entry, right, was the immediate reaction here, right? So I entered actually at the closure of this, and if you're looking at the candles, right, in a micro perspective, right, I'm seeing that. You see the reaction, right, and then I noticed this as unwillingness. So once I saw that as unwillingness, right, I'm willing to take it. You could even possibly take it with a tighter stop. I didn't do that because there's always the fact that we can fulfill an inefficiency, but right, as you can see, the unwillingness worked, caused the break of structure here, right, and you could have easily even caught a re-entry there. On top of that, right, before we continue, right, something I like to personally see, right, is when we're looking for a schematic, right, the automatic first thing I'm seeing is the selling climax. The selling climax, I would prefer to have volume like this, right, but that didn't happen here. So as you can see here, right, we have high volume, right, and then we see two lows that fell to break the initial low, right? What does that mean? Right, is that we're potentially seeing these two, right? So now that I'm seeing that, I see that we're in a trading range, right? So, oops, I should have deleted that. So now that I know that I'm in a trading range, right, maybe there's a POI right below these lows, right? Because this did not break this low, so now we have relative equal lows. Why? Because the final candle here was actually broken. So this is not mitigating anything, right? So as you can see, there's actually a candle there. Right, I don't know if that's a bullish or bearish candle, but I'm just gonna highlight the whole thing. Right, and as you can see, that's where this comes into play. Right, so this is actually why I took my other positions here. Right, I took them a bit above because I didn't catch the absolute bottom, but right, as you can see there, this was my high risk position, right, anticipating a spring. Not necessarily what I want you to do, for obvious reasons. I don't want you picking lows, but since I'm showing you guys this, right, I'm now seeing this as a potential spring. Why? Because as we're looking at volume, right, we have the selling climax volume, right, and then we have the secondary test volume. The secondary test volume does not break a structural low, right, but it has extremely high volume. So this is the exact same principle as if we would have seen it in the selling climax, right? So our selling climax, right, is in our secondary test, right? So now our spring has 0 volume. What does that mean? False move, okay? So from here, you could even see that this is where, right, the initial breaks of structure occur, right? But I'm focusing on the entire legs, right? For one, this here is looking extremely messy, so I want to focus on my entire leg. So now after this, right, giving us, right, this bullish optimism that doesn't break structure, but has low volume, reacts from a POI, and does not mitigate anything, meaning bearish order flow is now disrupted. It does not make sense for me to want to believe this is going to continue lower. So, right, we came up into the inefficiency from M1, right, and the 50%, anywhere here is where I entered. Right, so from here, right, we now create our SOS, right, and it's our BULPS that continues higher. So the reason why this is now my point of invalidation is because this is essentially where the schematic completed. So you could even see it as a potential turbulence point, right, as to why this continues higher. But, right, I know that if we break the slow, right, we can easily see downside. So it really just, whatever happens here, you know, in between now and mid-London session, right, it's pretty much going to dictate where we're going to go from here. Because even though our bullish closure was extremely bullish, extremely strong, right, if we break these initial levels of structure, we can easily see retracements start to form. But, right, also keep this in mind, is that even if you break the slow, it's not the end of the world, right? It's just not my preference, right? Now, why do I say that? Because we have our structural range here, right? So if we break the slow, we could just be aiming for a type of discount that will then continue higher, right? This is why I'm super, for pro trend trades, because they just make more sense, and it takes a lot for a trend to change. It doesn't just take the initial structural levels. Doesn't matter what type of time frame you're looking at, right? You have to also consider the structural level above that and the structural level above that, right? But that also depends on what kind of trader you are. But yeah, pretty much that's that for EURUSD, right? I don't like how we're reacting here, and even though, like I said, we can come back into a premium down here, into a discount. I'm sorry. Right, I don't want to see the slow break, right? Because now, if we're trying to be dynamic, we're trying to look at the other way. We're seeing reaction of POI, break of structure, right? Inciting bearish order flow, right? So it really just depends on the reactions given and just how price wants to act once we get there. Let's see. Don't think I missed anything. But daily, what the hell is that? But yeah, I really like how this is looking in terms of bullishness. Yep, I like seeing that. We even came back into this daily wick here. Right, bullish order flow could be incited based on that. Euro GBP, this is a weird one. So we're at a point now. Right, we're pretty much stalling. So, right, as we're pretty much seeing here, we're still bearish. Right, we're still bearish. No, there's nothing to say. They're still bearish. But last night, I believe, yeah, it was last night, we actually came back and reacted from this inefficiency of structure here. Right, so this reaction then came to essentially mitigate something down here. So even though we haven't broken structure, I believe it was M3. Yeah, I used the whole candle. Well, the open to the low. But we came back and mitigated twice, right? And that's probably because right? As you can see, the open here, right, only mitigated 1. But that's still, to me, right, I would have wanted to see the initial reaction, right, cause that structure break if you're assuming bullishness, right? So the reason why I have weak order flow there is because the bullish order flow in play is pretty weak, because we haven't even broken the initial level of structure yet, and we've already had 2 reactions. So it doesn't make sense for me to think that this is gonna fly from here. But even if we are given bullishness, there's a very likely key that it's all diminishment, and that's just based off of if this and that. But the reason why I have 2 rectangles here is because, for one, I would like to see the continuation here, right? And I wouldn't want to see this point of invalidation break. But there is also a much more extremely deep retracement here. This isn't something that's derived from anything crazy. I believe it's like even smaller time frames. Yeah, M1. Yeah, so you see that would be an inefficiency fill there, but I would love to see these be reacted from and continued lower, right? Because now what do you have? Right, liquidity sitting here, right? We have this, we have a higher high, right? And I'm anticipating a type of unwillingness. And if you're paying attention, if we get something like this here, right, now what does this entire thing look like? I don't know about you guys, but this looks exactly like this, and we would be here. And yeah, I do have this marked out. Here's actually M10, M15 point of interest. From here, I want to see if that's gonna react. But buying here doesn't make sense to me, unless I'm looking to hedge my overall positions. But no. But yeah, the only way that's gonna be this is gonna be messed up is if we take out liquidity first. If we take out liquidity first, I'm completely uninterested. Right? Because if we do something like that, not probable for me. Well, probable, but not preferred. Right? Because this could easily be now a break of structure, showing its hand, retracement, continuation. But yeah, pretty long talk today. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything. So yeah, pretty much here. Right, setting climax. Right, automatic rally. Secondary test phase B, secondary test phase A. Spring, LPS, SOS, BU, LPS. Oh yeah, stock trade. No. This is super straightforward. There isn't even much of an explanation to give. Right, so as you can see, right, Sergio has all the fundamentals on this. Right, but if we're looking at this, right, bullish break of structure up to there. Right, we zoom in, what do we see? What do we see here? Buying climax, high volume, right? Diminishment, right? Spring, optimism, LPS. This is around where he entered, or where we entered, pretty much. Right? Very straightforward. Volume diminishment, buying climax, showing the exact characteristic we want to see. We now have a shakeout. Did it mitigate anything? No. Mitigations work super weird on here. I focus more on structure, mainly because of a lack of liquidity in comparison to currency. So that's why you see all these gaps. There's just not as much money in this as there is in foreign exchange. But yeah, very, very straightforward, very, very noteworthy. Right, this is a very, very good scenario that you guys should have. Right, I just really enjoyed the part where, you know, the buying climax has the high volume that we want, so that then this entire move gives us that diminishment. Right, and as you can see, volume starts pumping, right, as soon as the schematic is completed, or for the most part completed. Right, so it just makes sense. Right, climactic action, right, recollection of supply, recollection of demand, because that's the definition of reaccumulation, right, and follow through. Have you started to trade? Yeah, I started trading today. Well, yesterday. Sorry, yesterday. But yeah, other than that, not really much else to talk about, TBH. Let's see, what do you guys have to say this week? We have like 20 minutes. Yeah, I don't want to go beyond 8. But yeah, for the most part though, please keep this. Actually, I'm gonna give you guys the image. I'm gonna show you guys the notes, or I'm gonna add some more notes. What the hell? This isn't going back anymore. Okay, oh well. Okay, let's see. Alright, climactic action. Diminishment. Right, diminishment, recollection of demand, follow through. Right, I'll put that in the Discord. Make sure you guys keep that. Cool. Alright, do you guys have any questions? Are you gonna continue with the trade recaps from the phase 4? What? What are you talking about? You talking about pair breakdowns? Yeah, but obviously not anytime soon. Yeah. Yeah. No worries. Yeah. Like for example, if I have a good 1 to 40, 1 to 50, I'll definitely show those. Or pretty much just scenarios that take too long to explain. I'd rather just make a video instead of trying to do a bunch of charts. I thought bearish volume should be diminishing. Well, it is, for one. 2, right, I'm focusing on what a reaccumulation means. Like I said, the recollection of demand. That's what a reaccumulation is. Right? Not only that, but structure-wise, I'm focusing inside of this range, with this being the overall point of invalidation. And because we see climactic action, right? Climactic action, right? We see excessive bullishness, right, in the buying climax. So naturally you see bullish diminishment because you're stalling in price, right? And this is the recollection that we're talking about, right? So we have optimism, which is the sign that we've recollected orders, right, and are planning to move higher. That doesn't necessarily have to show in the volume. That just has to be you noticing structure and noticing effort, noticing, every other aspect. Right? So as soon as we see the optimism, we now see a pullback. Right? Now when we see those initial structure breaks here, right, is when we want to see, bullish volume start to show itself. Alright, this time frame is actually pretty ugly. Yeah, this one shows it a lot better. Right, climax, diminishment, right, recollection, and then obviously here, right, it's showing you that the reaccumulation is valid. But yeah, I don't necessarily here, all I care about is this, the fact that we're doing this, and then I care about this, right? This gives the initial probabilities of seeing a schematic form, right? The diminishment is showing me the recollection, or it's showing me the shift. How do you know the difference? You see it in the structure inside, right? And then this is what's showing me that bullish order flow is intact, the reaccumulation is valid, the structure is valid, right? And the overall bias is valid, right? Okay, does that make sense? So yeah, just focus on what I'm trying to say. Don't focus too much on the specifics. Right? This is also something I'm noticing too with everything. Like, I just try not to think too hard about everything anymore. Whether it's school, people, trading, managing the brand, everything. I just try not to think too hard about it. Yeah. If it makes sense, it's going to work out. If it makes sense and it doesn't work out, we got to figure out why. And if it doesn't make sense and I was trying to make it work, then that's my mistake. Yeah, logic and justification. Does it make sense or does it not make sense? Cool. So does anybody have any questions? Like, look, also too, this goes for everybody that's watching these live, right? I literally say, I'll get to your question in a bit, Luca. Hold on. Dang, I lost my train of thought. Oh, that's so annoying. All right. Okay, I think I got it. Okay. I literally say, do you have any questions? Right? I will critique your questions in front of everybody, right? Because you're asking me the question, right? So if you're going to take that the wrong way, then don't ask the question. Just ask it privately. I'm still going to critique it. Don't get me wrong. Why? Because I'm a person that believes there's such a thing as stupid questions. And I'll call you out on it. Like, for example, to me, a stupid question is a question that you're asking me where you already have the answer to. You're just too lazy to go get it. That's what a stupid question is to me. And if I give you the answer to something and you're going to ask me about that same subject, right, I probably won't answer the question. right? Because that shows to me that you're either lazy, that shows to me that you're not paying attention, that shows to me that you probably want a handout, right? Obviously not to that extreme, right? But that's the initial sign. That's the initial thing that I'm noticing. And it's until that, type of mindset changes that I start seeing the improvement. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything I do is with reason, right? Like, I'm not a dickhead to you just to be a dickhead, Um, but yeah, pretty much that's what I'm getting at. So if you have a question, ask the damn question, please. With some sugar on top, please. Because I don't wanna hear that. I don't wanna quote anybody's words because I've actually heard it from a couple of people, but I don't want to hear that. Oh, you're too scared to ask. That's bullshit. I don't want to hear. Oh, Fredo won't answer my questions. That's bullshit. I don't want to hear anything along those lines about I'm going to critique your question. Obviously, I'm going to critique it. You're asking me a question. Two, right? I'm going to give you an answer. It might not be the answer you want, but it's the answer you need. And there's a difference. Why? Because I make you think. Right? Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I never give straightforward answers. But yeah, anyways, I have to get that off my chest. Because fuck, like, no coach is nice to anybody. And if he is, he probably sucks. My college coach sucked because he was nice. Nobody was scared of him. He was scared of us. But when I played club in high school, I was scared of my coach. And this dude was my cousin. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was terrified of this dude. Why? Because if I fuck up or if I do some stupid shit, he's going to sit my ass down on the bench. You know what I'm saying? Like, with the college coach, it doesn't matter what the fuck you do. If you're a favorite, you're a favorite. And that's probably why the team sucked. And that's probably why I left. But yeah, like, it's all within reason. Everything I do is within reason. Yeah, that's how breakthroughs come. Yes. Right, but I also think that speaking in riddle, right, like me making you think, that's I think the best way to teach somebody something. Whether it's tying a fucking shoe, tying a shoe, learning how to trade, what else? Starting your own business, right? Because if you give someone something, they're not gonna value it. Right, and even if you do value it, you're not going to take it seriously. You need a catalyst to take it seriously. You got to have a want, a need, like a desire. Right, like that was a question I think I was asked on Instagram. Fuck. How to stay persistent. Okay, yeah, desire. The want, the need, the desire, Answer like a mirror. Yeah, straight up. I ask you what you're not going to ask yourself. You're starting to understand what optimism is. Okay, do you know what optimism means? Do you know what the word means? Oh, these motherfuckers. What does optimism mean? And I'll wait for your answer before I hit enter here. Optimism? No. What's the actual definition of optimism? Like, do you know the actual definition? Don't. And if you don't, just say no. Like, it's okay. If you don't know the exact definition, just say no. And I'd rather go off like a Google definition than my own definition. But I'm thinking it's a bit difficult. Okay, no. Okay, I'm gonna just show you. Okay. Optimism. Right? Optimism, based on Google, okay, is an attitude reflecting a belief or hope that the outcome of some specific endeavor or outcomes in general will be positive. Okay? Right? So I'm taking the root of what that means. Right? I'm reflecting on a belief or hope that the outcome will be favorable, not positive or negative, because we're in a market where you can either buy or sell. Right? So the definition that I'm rooting from Google, right, is essentially the attitude, the action, right, that indicates belief or hope that the outcome will be favorable. Okay, so how do you apply that to a chart? Optimism. Why? Because structurally we're bullish, right? We're bullish, but we're not just going to buy here and here and here. We need a catalyst to move higher, a reason to go higher. So what do we see? I see the initial break of structure here showing its hand. Optimism. Optimism that my reaccumulation will probably work out. Right? So what happens? This increases my probability, and it's increasing my desire to want to find an execution. You get what I'm saying? Right? So just see it as showing its hand, because optimism can be seen obviously in distributions too. The only thing is like, because I'm so attached to optimism being positive, right? Seeing optimism in a distribution is a bit more trickier, so I usually just put SOW, or initial SOW or something like that. But that's just because of, that's how I see the market. That's my personal issue. And that's just what I see. But optimism can easily be seen both ways, because optimism, like I said, right, it's the action that, let's go back here, right? The action, right, that essentially reflects a belief or hope that the outcome will be favorable. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Yep, no problem. But yeah, that optimism, that's my own thing. Like, that's just what I see. Like, showing its hand, optimism, those are like my stuff. You won't find that online type thing. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Right, so just see it as showing its hand. That's like the simplest way to put it. Open to moving higher. I just don't want to say that because that's biased to accumulation, reaccumulation. So I just see it open to moving into a desired or favorable direction, I guess you could say. But yeah, does anybody have any more questions? Yeah, I don't really care, bro. It's whatever. I don't care. You see, the entire our model is now the coolest thing on Instagram. The thing is, I don't have a reason to prove it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, anyways, back to what we were talking about. Please, if you have a question, ask the damn question. And if it's a dumb question, I'm going to tell you it's a dumb question. And if you can't take straight up honesty, then honestly, I don't know what you're doing here. You see, Sergio will like sugarcoat everything he says in a positive way. No, I'm going to give it to you how it is. Right? I don't care if you resent me. I don't care if you don't like me. Right? But you got to hear what you got to hear. Yeah, Sergio can tell you the nice shit. I'll tell you the straight up shit. So I guess that's a balance. Good cop, bad cop. Yeah. Nah, I'm just the cop. He's my little mutt. He's my little German in the trunk. No, but yeah, do you guys have any questions? So we can just cover them real quick. I asked them all, but if I had a camera turned on, I would. Yeah, I don't know. My professors don't make me do webcam for anything. And I mean, technically, my PC doesn't have a webcam, so I don't see the need for it. Like, if I need a webcam, I'll just use my laptop. Technical view on Clover Health. What's that? What are you talking about? I'm not gonna do that, bro. Because you're asking me to essentially um, give you my own bias about this. No, I don't do that. Don't do that. I'll look at it though. Let's see. What is this? But no, bro, I don't do that. Everybody knows I don't do that. Oh, Sergio's in. Oh yeah, this is okay. Yeah. The Sergio's talked about this before. Yeah. That's probably where you got it from. I see. The thing is, it's kind of hard to not want to buy a stock that has utility. Like, for the most part, if your stock has utility, a decent board of directors, and some type of catalyst supporting it, whether it's like a merge or somebody, or somebody invests a ton of money into it, it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to go against a bullish bias for a stock. What is order flow? Is the I have the actual definition on my iPad. I'll just go off the top of my head. The distribution of orders through mitigation. So consecutive mitigations signify order flow, and that's why your markets move like this and not just like this. Yeah, just the distribution of orders through mitigation. That'd be my definition. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna end it off there. I have to do some homework before I go to sleep. And yeah, then school tomorrow. Cool. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. But yeah.